The old clay pot had not been touched in 40 years, and everyone in the village of Eku knew that the last person who touched it had walked into the bush that same night and never came back. It sat in the corner of Mama Chidi's kitchen, round, with strange lines cut into its sides like the marks old men make when they are trying to remember something they should not have forgotten. No one cooked with it. No one cleaned it. Even the lizards that ran across every wall in that house stayed far away from the corner where the pot sat. Children dared each other to go near it, but none of them ever did. Mama Chidi was 81 years old. She had lived in that house since she was a young bride, and she had learned early not to ask questions about the pot. Her husband's mother, Old Ngozi, had told her only one thing before she died: feed it on the night of the new moon, or it will feed itself. Mama Chidi had always obeyed. Every new moon, she placed a small bowl of palm oil and a piece of dried fish beside the pot. In the morning, the food was always gone. She did not think too hard about where it went. But then her grandson Emeka came to stay with her for the long school holiday, and everything changed. Emeka was 14 and full of the kind of confidence that comes from reading too many books and seeing too little of the real world. He had grown up in the city, where the lights never went off and people laughed at stories about spirits. When Mama Chidi told him to stay away from the corner of the kitchen, he nodded and smiled the way young people smile when they have already decided not to listen. On the third night of his visit, Emeka woke up at midnight, hungry. He crept to the kitchen, moving slowly in the dark so he would not wake his grandmother. He found some cold yam on the counter and ate it standing up. He was about to go back to bed when he noticed something strange. The pot was glowing. It was not a bright glow, just a soft, low light, the color of a coal that is about to die. It paused slowly, like breathing. Emeka stood very still and watched it. His city brain told him it was moonlight coming through a crack in the wall. His body told him something very different, because his feet had gone cold and his hands had started to shake. Then the pot made a sound. It was a low, wet sound, like something thick moving inside a closed space. Then it came again. Then silence. Emeka's heart was going so fast he could hear it. He took one step toward the pot. Do not. He spun around. Mama Chidi was standing in the doorway in her white wrapper, her eyes very awake for a woman who had been asleep a moment ago. She was not looking at him. She was looking at the pot. Come away, she said, quietly but with a voice that did not offer any room for argument. Emeka came away. They sat outside on the veranda in the dark, and Mama Chidi told him the story she had never told anyone before. Many years ago, before Emeka's father was born, before even Mama Chidi came to this house, there was a man named Dike. Dike was a farmer, a good one, but he was never satisfied. While other farmers thanked the land for what it gave them, Dike always wanted more. He wanted enough to buy a second farm, then a third. He wanted his children to be rich long after he was gone. One dry season, when the rains had been poor and every family in Eku was eating less, Dike walked far into the bush to a place the old people had warned him never to go. He came back 3 days later with a clay pot, and he said nothing about where he had found it or who had given it to him. But from that night, things changed for Dike. His crops grew when no one else's did. His yams were fat and heavy while his neighbors dug up thin, dry things from the same earth. He had more than enough, and then more than that. People said God had blessed him. Dike said nothing. But the pot had to be fed. And at first, the feeding was small: oil, fish, a little meat. Then the pot began to want more. One year, Dike's favorite dog disappeared. The next year, 2 of his goats. Then his eldest son went into the bush one evening and did not come back, and when they searched for him they found nothing, not even his sandals. Dike understood then what he had agreed to, even if he had never said the words out loud. The pot was not giving him anything. It was lending, and it was collecting the debt in its own way, in its own time. When Dike died alone, because by then most of his family had found reasons to live far away. The pot passed to his son's wife, who was Emeka's great-grandmother. She was a wise woman, wiser than Dyke. She did not try to use the pot, and she did not try to destroy it. She had heard that the last man who threw the pot into a river had found it sitting in his kitchen the next morning, and the river had dried up by noon. So she fed it, and she kept it, and she passed the rule down through the women of the family: feed it on the night of the new moon, or it will feed itself. But what is inside it? Emeka asked. Mama Chidi looked at him for a long time. Hunger, she said. Just hunger. Some hungers are so old and so deep that they become their own thing. They stop being part of a person and start being their own creature. Emeka was quiet. Then he said, Grandma, you didn't feed it this month. The silence that followed was the loudest thing Emeka had ever heard. Mama Chidi stood up so fast her wrapper almost came loose. What night is it? She said, and her
What night
voice
is
was
it?
different now,
The new moon
thin
was 2
and
nights
sharp like
ago.
a cart.
I remember because there were no stars and I couldn't
The
sleep.
new moon was 2 nights ago, Emeka said. I remember because there were no stars and I couldn't sleep. Mama Chidi closed her eyes. When she opened them, she was not looking at Emeka anymore. She was looking past him, into the kitchen, where the glow from the pot was now a little brighter than before. It has already started.
It has already started.
They did not have dried fish. They did not have palm oil. Mama Chidi had used the last of it 2 days ago and had not yet gone to the market. They had a small piece of smoked meat left over from dinner, and Mama Chidi took it with 2 hands and walked slowly into the kitchen. Emeka followed, even though every part of him was saying not to. The pot was glowing steadily now. The sound from inside it was louder, and it was no longer just wet movement. It was something that was almost like breathing, almost like a voice, almost like a word being said in a language that had no name. Mama Chidi stood before the pot. She did not shake. Emeka realized, watching her, that she had been standing before this pot for 60 years, and she had never shaken. He felt something open up in his chest that he did not have a word for, a mix of fear and admiration and sadness all at once. She set the meat down beside the pot. She said something quietly in Igbo, words Emeka did not fully understand, words that sounded like an apology and a warning at the same time. The glow dimmed. The sound stopped. The kitchen was just a kitchen again. They went back to the veranda and sat without talking for a while. A small wind moved through the compound, carrying the smell of dry grass and distant rain. Why don't we just leave? Emeka said at last. Just go. Leave it here and never come back. I asked that too, when I was young, Mama Chidi said. But hungry things follow. And better it stays in a house where someone knows the rules than wanders loose looking for someone who doesn't. Emeka thought about that. Then I need to learn the rules, he said. Mama Chidi looked at him for a long moment. He had expected her to say no, to say he was too young, to say go back to your city and your bright lights and forget all this. Instead, she nodded, slowly, the way people nod when they have been waiting for something to happen and are relieved it finally has. First rule, she said. Never miss the new moon. Never miss the new moon, he repeated. Second rule. Never ask it for anything. Never ask it for anything. Third rule. She paused. Don't be like Dyke. Some things are hungry because they were made to be. Don't try to use that hunger. Don't make deals with empty things. Take what the land gives you and be grateful. Hungry things smell greed like dogs smell meat. Emeka nodded. The word settled into him the way heavy things settle, slowly, surely, all the way to the bottom. He went home at the end of the holiday, back to his city, his school, his friends who would never believe any of this. But on the night of every new moon, he put his phone down, sat quietly, and remembered. And many years later, when Mama Chidi was gone and the house passed to him, he drove back to Eku with a bottle of palm oil and a piece of dried fish. He walked into the kitchen. The pot sat in its corner, round and black and patient. He set the food beside it. He said the words his grandmother had taught him, the apology, the warning, the acknowledgement. The pot said nothing. It never did, when you fed it on time. Emeka went out to the veranda and sat down, and the night sat around him, quiet and large, full of all the things that were older than anyone alive, waiting in the dark where the light did not reach, patient as only very hungry things can be. He was not afraid. He had learned what his grandmother had taken a lifetime to teach him, that fear is not the same as respect, and the difference between the two can save your life. He watched the dark for a while. Then he went inside, locked the door, and went to sleep. Take what the land gives you and be grateful. Hungry things smell greed like dogs smell meat.